Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Wednesday afternoon following the Rangers closing out the Rays. Rays going out with a whimper there in the playoffs. Rangers advance. Will take on the Orioles starting this weekend. We'll have your games right here on the horn, but that also means full show tomorrow because the Rangers got it done in 2. We'll get into some NFL, a lot of college football talk, getting you ready for Texas OU. Talk about where you can catch me, catch Aaron Hogan, catch everybody this weekend. We'll get into all of that. And, of course, your text. You guys drive the show. We just try and keep it on the rails. 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the new text line. Remember, if you haven't sent in your nickname yet, I know we had a bunch of people text in yesterday for the Big Fat Poll that maybe didn't have their nickname in yet. So I just see a number, but we can type in your nicknames now on the new text line, 512-447-3776. So we try and get all set back up. You know, it is a little bit more taxing to come in to do a show directly after a sporting event where, you know, you're trying to time it out and get in there, but I think we got it good. We'll get through this segment. We'll get through the next one. Talking about your text is what we try and always do at the end of the hour, the bottom of the hour. 512-447-3776. And I'll tell you when we talk about your text. Let me pull up my sounders. We normally talk about the Big Fat Poll of the day, which here's the sounder for. Starting off with the Big Fat Poll because we're a little behind because we waited for the Rangers post game to stop. But Big Fat Poll of the day yesterday, we talked about your most hated player in the Texas OU rivalry. You guys pretty overwhelmingly online voted for Baker Mayfield. Pretty big on the text line, but overwhelmingly people went Baker Mayfield as the most hated Sooner in that rivalry for Texas fans. So I wanted to change it around, be a little bit nicer. We're still playing hate songs. We're still playing some hate songs on the musical theme. We're still going to do that for you. But be a little bit nicer on the text line today. 512-447-3776. Who's your most beloved player in the Texas OU rivalry? Who in the rivalry is the guy that you think, man, when I think of the Texas Longhorns in the Texas OU rivalry, that's the guy. That guy for me, that's the hero of the Texas OU series. Of course, most recently, you can probably go with a Cameron Dicker. He kicks that big field goal his freshman season, and everybody goes nuts. So it could be that. It could be Stoney Clark, big defensive lineman, huge play, gets a win for Texas back in the day. Peter Gardere beat OU as a starting quarterback 4 times. The only quarterback 4 times to win against OU. You know, there's several. There's several that you could go with. You may go with an easy answer. Vince Young, Colt McCoy, just a guy you go in there. Jordan Shipley had some big games against Oklahoma. Maybe it's one of the other defensive players that you just think, man, that's in my head. And I'd love to know the reason why, too. Reason why, but who is your most beloved player that you think, when you think Texas OU, you think of this Longhorn? And tell me why. Tell me why you think of this Longhorn when you think of Texas OU. I'd love to hear that on the text line. 512-447-3776 on the text line. We're going to get into some more Texas OU conversation, play a little bit more Sark audio, figure out how Texas is getting prepared for this game, what you have to look forward to for Texas trying to go into a different atmosphere. Transfer. We talked about these yesterday with the transfer portal, with NIL. I think it's changed some. But that being said, there is still a lot, going on in this game. It is still one of the biggest rivalry games, and it's going to be one of the best games of the year across because you have 2 undefeated teams, 2 teams that are going for it all. Let's talk a little NFL, though. Well, we have a little bit of time while we wait for these texts to come in. 512-447-3776. While we wait for your text to come in, and we'll get to those in the next segment. I do want to bring up a couple things for the NFL before one major thing. I want to talk a little Cowboys before we get to the break because we're not going to talk about them as much in the 6 o'clock hour. But I do want to bring up the thing I've been watching and going through and looking at this matchup. It's a huge matchup with the 49ers this weekend. And it's funny because Cowboys fans seem to get more and more upset because the notion is the Cowboys haven't played anybody and they lost to the Cardinals. So you can't say that this team's really good. But then also the 49ers haven't really had any big matchups either. They just beat the Cardinals that you lost to. That's all that really there. But this team for the Cowboys, For me, there's a couple things where you're going to look into it. One we talked about yesterday is the running game, that San Francisco can slow down the running game for the Cowboys. We know Rico Dowdle is on the injury list. We don't know if he's going to be able to play. If he doesn't, how are you going to be able to figure out that running back position? Are you just going to run Tony Pollard like crazy? You did sit him down a lot last week. I think getting him ready for this game, kind of giving him a little bit of rest. But on the other side, that's where it's really worries me more for the Cowboys, because I think you can figure out some things. You can get some short yardage. You can I think you can get Brandon Cooks more involved in this offense as well, kind of running some short routes and not using him as a deep threat and just trying to get him the ball a couple times and use him more in the run game. Or in just short passes, get Dak something he can do, right? On the other side of the ball is a little bit more worried. This defense is for Dallas is really good. However, they might allow some rushing. You're going against probably the best running back in the NFL right now, Christian McCaffrey. Nick Chubb was up there. He's no longer playing. Christian McCaffrey has been killing it. He's in the Kyle Shanahan offense, which we know is going to favor running backs. What can this team do to slow down the run without just giving Brock Purdy every weapon under the sun? Without giving Brock Purdy a field day throwing to Ayuk and throwing to Deebo Samuel? How do you slow down that run game? And then, how do you allocate assets? By not taking away Micah Parsons from the run game, from the pass rush game, because you don't want to take Micah Parsons out of the pass rush, right? You want to keep Micah Parsons involved in that pass rush. If you're the Cowboys, do you allocate positions when you're beat up in the secondary? When Trayvon Diggs is not there? That worries me. That worries me for the Cowboys, is how they're going to be able to allocate resources. This is going to be a huge game for Mozzie Smith to see if he can progress. Hankins, Odigizua, all those guys are going to have to step up on the interior D-line to be able to try and get a hand on Christian McCaffrey and slow him down to let the linebackers come in and get him. This is something that I think Dan Quinn's defense is not as prepared for as an offense that has a massive running threat in Christian McCaffrey, but also on the back end of that has some of the most dynamic wide receivers in Ayuk and Deebo Samuel that are also just big guys that if you're going out there and trying to bring them down with just one cornerback and you don't have a Trayvon Diggs out there anymore to try and stop those passes in, it seems like that's a recipe for disaster if you're the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not quite sure how they figure it out. But I think what one of your keys is going to be is this is going to be one of the most safety-heavy defenses you've ever seen from Dan Quinn. He loves playing his safeties out there. I think you're going to see the safeties all over the place in this game, because you're going to have to see the safeties kind of spread out wide but be available to come back in the middle. You're going to have to show different fronts to try and trick Brock Purdy into seeing things that he hasn't seen, and to not trust his defense, not trust his eyes, and not trust what he thinks is going to happen on the offense. All of those things you're going to have to try and show him as many looks as you can to try and confuse Brock Purdy. But if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, that is my main concern this week, is how do we stop the run game without allocating too many assets that Brock Purdy can beat us? Now, you're going to let Brock Purdy be the guy to beat us, sure. But unfortunately, Mr. Irrelevant has some killer weapons in Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. So that is a question that you're going to have to worry about going into that weekend. We'll talk more about it tomorrow as we have a little bit more time to talk there. Another thing to mention real quick before we go to break. We're going to come back and read your text on who is the most beloved player for you in Texas OU history. And when you think of that rivalry, when you think of Texas, what's the first burnt orange jersey you think of? What's the first Longhorn that comes to your mind that you say, that's the guy I love because of Texas OU? So send that in, 512-447-3776. I do want to remind you, NBA basketball preseason starts tomorrow morning. Now, the rest of it doesn't start till the weekend, I believe, but tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., you get the Abu Dhabi game. Dallas Mavericks versus Minnesota Timberwolves. For any Mavericks fans out there, your first look at the new Mavericks that they have tried to go out in the offseason and take more of Jason Kidd's method, go more to Jason Kidd. I thought they should have gotten rid of Jason Kidd last year when you traded for Kyrie Irving and he refused to change what he wanted to do. When you bring in a Christian Wood and Jason Kidd stands at what he does, I don't get why they continue to go with the Jason Kidd. Continue to go with Jason Kidd, where he wants to play defense and you keep getting offensive-only players. I don't get it. They brought in Grant Williams now. They're going to try and bring in a little bit more. You're going to try and instill a little bit more toughness throughout this offseason and through camp and everything else. They're going to be in Abu Dhabi. playing 11 a.m. game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards, of course, was one of the better players in FIBA and the FIBA team that lost. But if you want to just see the first look to see if there's any more toughness from any of these bench players, because it's going to be mostly bench players, you want to see any more toughness from them, from the Dallas Mavericks, tomorrow at 11 a.m., NBA season starts, preseason starts. So you can get a little bit. If you're a basketball head like me, you can get a little more in there. But if you just want to stick to Texas OU, a lot coming up this week. Tomorrow, my man Jacob Stander is going to come on so we can make our picks that we do every single week. He'll let me know how he did last week. I don't keep up with it. I task him with that, so I will let him come in and let us know how he did last week, make our picks, because Friday we are going to have a big show. We're actually going to go 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Friday. Aaron Hogan is going to be in Dallas with some of the Inside Texas guys, maybe some other special guests. From 3 to 7, they will be out there, but 4 to 7 will be on the air. Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. Big parking lot. You can go out and check them out. Rob Babers is actually going to come in the studio and join me, and we're going to have a big show giving you 3 hours, kind of getting you ready for pregame, getting you ready on a Friday for Texas OU. So tune into that. It is going to be a really fun show presented by Texas One Source Gas. So check that one out. On Friday, big 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. show. Also, pregame, 9 to 11 a.m., going to be on air here on the Horn with Aaron Hogan and Rob Babers. Myself and Ty Henderson out at the Field House at the Crossover doing a watch party on Saturday as well. So it's a place for us to check us out for all your needs on Texas OU. All that stuff we got for you. All the information is going to be up on hornfm.com as well, so you can check it out there. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll start to get to your answers. To start to get to your answers for the Big Fat Poll of the day, who is your most beloved player in the Texas OU rivalry? We did yesterday. We did most hated. You guys overwhelmingly went Baker Mayfield. I want to know who you guys think about when you think Texas OU, when you're looking at this rivalry and you think in your brain, man, what is the thing? I would love to know what's the name you think of, and give me a reason. Give me an iconic moment in your head, but it doesn't even have to be. It can be for you. It doesn't have to be the correct answer for everybody. If there's one for you and you just go, man, Jordan Shipley made a big play, or Case McCoy, man, what he did against OU, that whatever it was it in your formative years, if there was a player, if you think there's somebody that set apart for you, 512-447-3776 is a text line. We'll read the more of those when we come back right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and at hornfm.com. Keeping our hate music going all week long here on the Sports Complex. Sports Complex on a Wednesday afternoon. Big week ahead for you. Thursday afternoon show. Jacob Stander coming back and making some picks for the weekend because a huge show Friday, 4 to 7 p.m. Aaron Hogan down at Terry Black's Barbecue in Dallas. Rod Babers joining me in studio. Just a big show happening on Friday. So packing it up for you. You know, we missed like an hour of the show this week due to the Rangers. Rangers get the big win if you didn't see. Move on to play the Baltimore Orioles this weekend. They continue on. First playoff series win in quite a while for the Rangers. So congratulations to the Rangers, which it was a little funny because we saw the Rangers on the field at least. I believe they're having fun in the locker room, but I on the field at least, they had a little bit of a muted celebration. They kind of toned it down a little bit. I think it was because they were, the reports came out from Astros people that Astros, after they clinched on that, Monday or Tuesday before the season ended, that Saturday that the season ended, that they didn't party big that night, and then they won the division the next day, and they had the big party, and the Rangers went big the day they clinched and then didn't win the division. And there's no wrong answer in this. I've never understood why baseball celebrates like they do. It's always been foreign to me why they do it. But the Rangers apparently came out in one of the interviews post-game was like, well, we got more to do. Like, come on, guys. Still have fun. You can have fun. Everybody else does. I don't get it, but everybody in baseball does it, so you can have fun. Let's get to the text line, 512-447-3776. Big fat poll of the day today. Who's your most beloved player in the Texas OU rivalry? You guys are sending some in for me. I love it. Remember, you guys drive the show. We just try and keep it on the rails. We got the Angry Enchilada checking in. We get Julian from Austin Westwood, my alma mater. I went to Westwood as well. What class you're in, Julian? I went in, I graduated 02. Give you a hint of my age. Graduated in 02. We get Villain Bosworth. Bosworth was on my poll as well. I tried to put him in there. I think it may be a little too old school for the social media that Bosworth did not get on there, and Baker Mayfield won so much. And Gardere, I believe that's how it's pronounced. Gardere I was not watching a ton in the late 80s, early 90s, or remember much of the late 80s, early 90s. I was around. I was watching. But unfortunately, my memory is not great. The whole 2022 team. Enough said from Jordan from Round Rock. I like it. I like that we're short-term memory on this one. I'm a fan of it. You say we beat him 49-0. Had a real bad season the season before. You almost beat him in, the year before, but of course we know Spencer Rattler gets knocked out, and then Caleb Williams comes in and starts to go off and become the Caleb Williams that has infatuated the nation for the last 3 years now, 2.5 years. That all started from this rivalry. The whole 2022 team. I like that, Jordan. I like that. We get Gardere, Stoney's tackle, Keith Cash's catch, and Quan's block. I like all of those. I like that you got a lot of good memories of Texas OU. I appreciate that. Derek Johnson, Jamal Charles, Jordan Shipley, most beloved Longhorns in OU games. I grew up watching these guys. I also knew that we always had a chance to win no matter what our record was when these guys played. I think I saw Derek Johnson, too. It's one of those guys, we've talked about it plenty on the station, but he just was one of those guys before his time. If that guy came along a little bit later on, especially in the NFL, I think he could have been a, easy Hall of Famer. College football Hall of Famer now, clearly. Glad he's coming back and being a part of the program, so I'm helping out these kids. But yeah, I like all those answers. Charlie Strong and his long finger. Yeah, I like Charlie Strong in the hat when times were not good. I think we choose to forget that Charlie Strong just because we're like, we just want to kind of forget that whole era of Texas football. But yeah, when he beat OU and everybody thought, man, this could be the turnaround. Things aren't going well for Texas, but this will be the platform to take us off. It's nicer to be going into the game this year and not relying solely on the Oklahoma game for your season. It's nice. Now, this game matters. This game's huge this year. Don't get me wrong. This game is a huge part of Texas' season. But I'm saying it's not the only bright spot that we're going to have. We've already had some good bright spots. We hope to have many more. Case McCoy is always one of my favorite Longhorns to think of this week. unbelievable performance during his last season, and also the A&M game heroics from Coach Cornuts the season against OU. Yeah, I will say, Case McCoy, he didn't always perform great, but in big games, he had it going. It's something that we'll talk about. I can talk about with Quinn Ewers. That is something that I think is an edge that Texas has, at least at quarterback, is that we have a quarterback that grew up wanting to be in this rivalry. And I don't think that's the same for Dillon Gabriel. But I know that Quinn Ewers really wanted to be in this rivalry. He wanted to be the quarterback for Texas. He wanted to beat Oklahoma. He did it in heroic fashion last year coming back from injury. But I think that's a little added flair into this, is that there's a quarterback who knows what this rivalry means, and maybe not so much for Dillon Gabriel. He wants to win. Believe me, he wants to win because he missed a game last year. My favorite Longhorn in the series is Chris Sims. Somehow kept Major Applewhite on the bench, and Sims couldn't beat us. Yeah, and that's from Sooner Dave there. Yeah, I don't like that Sooner Dave. I'm not gonna lie. We're not gonna go with that one. I like Chris Sims more than a lot of Longhorns do, but I can't go with that one there. Let's get a good one. Another Case McCoy with victory over OU, and how about Bam Bam Sam when he told the OU QB to take the L, in a word I can't say on the radio. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more of your text. Who is your most beloved player in Texas OU rivalry? Tell me why. There we go, Bam Bam Sam. We get Sam Ehlinger in there, but it's because, he said some things to a different quarterback, and then, you know what? He may have said some things to one of the most hated quarterbacks in Texas OU history, especially in recent history, for sure. So send that in, 512-447-3776. We will talk more about Texas OU, get you some different points of view on that. More Sark audio, getting ready for Texas OU as the show rolls on into the 6 o'clock hour here on the Sports Complex. Anything else y'all want to bring up, too? If y'all got any questions, concerns about Texas OU and the NFL or anything else, you can hit us up on the text line, 512-447-3776. We say you guys drive the show. We just try to keep it on the rails. We'll be back on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hour 2 on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. Gonna get into a lot of Texas OU talk. Got a clip from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rob B. Rob Babers brings up some good points. Get me on the show Friday. Always enjoy talking football with Rob Babers. So we'll hear some from Rod in the 6 o'clock hour as well. Of course, a lot more of your text. 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776. We're asking you, who do you is your most beloved player in the Texas OU rivalry? Who's a player that when you think of Texas OU, when you think of this game, and when you're getting ready in your head, who do you picture? What's the name? And tell me why. 512-447-3776. If you've come up with another name for the series, the Red River rivalry, if you've got a name for that, we were trying to find that out for the last few days. I don't think we're going to be able to get there. I appreciate you guys putting it in there. A lot of things, they just keep getting longer and longer. State Fair Street Fight's always good. They had one with Dallas in it. They were talking about this morning as well. I like those, but again, I'm trying to. All that is, it may work. It may work. I'm just going to keep calling it Texas OU. But if you got one that you think is that's the one, then we'll pitch it on the show today. 512-447-3776. Anything else you want to talk about? Hit me up. 512-447-3776. Back on the text line, Stoney Clark. Stoney Clark has, of course, had that big stop against James Allen at the goal line to get Texas a win. I mean, we could throw Todd Dodge in there as well. Todd Dodge, when Texas was not doing great, was not expected to win, gets a tie, gets a big play there. So maybe Todd Dodge, maybe that's somebody. You want to go old school with it? We'll give him some love. Most beloved would definitely have to be Jordan Shipley. I was there at the 45-35 game. The kick return, it was epic. It's from Sweet Lou there. I definitely like that one. I remember that one as well. That is definitely one that sticks out in my mind. Peter the Great won every game against OU. That is definitely Peter Gardere. Definitely is somebody that he wins every game, so you have to put him up there. But I think for a lot of us, he's just before I started really watching Texas football. I was watching Texas football like how kids watch it at the time that he was playing. So you know what? I'm sure he made it happy. It was happier that there was less anger in the house during that, I'm sure. Rod Wright scoring a big man touchdown after Brian Robinson blew up Rhett Bromar. Another good one there. And we get another Peter Gardere, 4-0 versus OU, always going to be there. Another Stoney Clark as well. Lil Jordan Humphrey gets 17 yards on a 3rd and 18. Then Dicker wins it. I guess that's 2. You asked for 1. Look, I like that you threw in Lil Jordan Humphrey. I'm a big fan of Lil Jordan Humphrey. Doesn't get enough love. Stoney Clark's goal line hit to keep the Sooner running back out of the end zone to win the game for Texas. I believe it was James Allen was the Sooner running back that was kept out, by the way. Julian from Westwood. 1999. Okay. So we did technically go to high school together, Julian. We were just in different, you were much older. I was a kid in there, but I don't want to say much older. In high school years, you were a senior. I was a sophomore. Much older. Closer to my brother's age. Not too much older. Come on now. Tom Herman, headbutting legend. Tom Bowl Game Herman. Quan blocks Shipley's return. Quan's block Shipley's return, and Sam saying, let's take the loss, you bleep. All favorites. We're going to get to more of those. 512-447-3776. Thank you, Day Drinker 77 for tuning in. We'll get to more. Real quick, though, let's talk a little Texas OU before we get to some more of your text. 512-447-3776. Who is your Texas OU hero? Your most beloved Texas OU player? Hit us up there. One of the things I want to talk about, though, for Texas OU, we can get into some of the more specifics of Texas OU, but one of the things for Texas that's going to be difficult this week, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, this is a game that I think Quinn Ewers is really going to have to lead the guys into, of knowing how big this game is as a rivalry, and then knowing how big this game is as the Texas Longhorns season, because those are two kind of separate entities, and keeping those two thoughts in your brain, making them cohesive without using them against each other. So not getting too apprehensive that you're in this rivalry game and every little thing is magnified because it's a rivalry game and your season's on the line and one or the other, and you have to, and everything gets so magnified that every mistake seems to be a problem. And for Quinn Ewers, we know he's been so much better. If you have to say one thing Quinn Ewers has been better at this season, it is being able to shake off a bad play. You know, the Quinn Ewers we saw last year, it could take him a full game, a full week to kind of come back the next week and look like a different player again. And this season, he's been much more level-headed. It may take him a play or two, but he seems to get right back out there, get back, sit down on the bench, calm himself down, and that has been a huge edge. Because this Texas team is playing really good football, and they all have things they can improve on. We know the deep shots. We know the kicking game. We know, they had Baylor week where they muffed 3 punts. All those things can be worked on, right? But you have to be able to stay dialed in what you're doing right, because something else is going to come up. And you're playing an OU team that we can say all day long hasn't been tested, but that doesn't mean they're bad. It's not inherently that they're bad because they haven't played anybody. They could be the greatest team in the country and just haven't played anybody yet. I don't think they are, but they could be. So we can't just take that for the fact that they haven't played anybody, so that means that they're automatically no good. That those two don't necessarily mean the same thing. But Texas, we know, has played somebody. They have played at Kansas. Yes, we know that Jalen Daniels didn't play, but they still played a good team. And we know that they played an Alabama team. And you can say it's an off year for Alabama. They're going to be a 2-loss team this season. Ooh. 2-loss SEC team is what we're predicting for Alabama. And people are saying that. But Texas has to stay dialed in. And Sark was asked on Monday about being dialed in and staying the course where you're going into a rivalry week. Normally this is a week where you kind of have to pump people up. But for Texas, you don't have to. You were already pumped up. You beat Alabama. Then you're trying to not have a trap game moment with Wyoming. And then you go in and play Baylor. You start off your Big 12, and we all know that everybody's been worried about Big 12 play because we're worried that Brett Yormark's got the hit out on Texas, and we got a John Wickett. I know everybody's been worried about that. So you go out and you handle your business against Baylor. You do make sure there's no problems there. Then you come out and you go against Kansas, number 23 team in the country. You say, all right, we're no letdown here. And now you're going against Oklahoma, undefeated Oklahoma, in the Cotton Bowl. How do you stay dialed in week after week when every week there seems to be something? How do you stay dialed in? Here's Sark talking about staying dialed in for Texas. Because it is, there's a lot of distractions, but luckily you get out of Austin, you get on a bus, you go to Dallas, you're you're kind of in your own quarters. You know everybody to keep it together. The leaders on this team aren't worried about, you don't necessarily have seniors that are going to be going out and partying outside because, again, this is not a normal thing of, hey, this is the last game. We're trying to do something special, and we all want to go to the NFL next year. So we don't need to go out and party on Dallas the night before necessarily. So let's stay. Let's get our stuff. You kind of get them to themselves a little bit. It's an 11 a.m. game, so you don't necessarily get distractions of turning on the TV and seeing yourselves on game day earlier. You don't get to see all that. I mean, Pat McAfee's going to be out there on Friday as well, and then you'll have the distractions. Don't get me wrong, but I think you're going to be able to contain it enough as a coaching staff. The bigger issue to me is being dialed in. Is can you keep this team focused, is what Sark said. You have to be able to keep staying focused when it's kind of been a long time and every single week feels like you have to be focused. This one comes with an extra incentive or an extra need that this is a rivalry game as well. So you have to now be focused on not just trying to go out there and play with emotion because it's a rivalry game, but focused on, man, this is still football. This is still what we need to do, and we still need to beat Texas. And that is where if Texas plays Texas football, what they've shown this year, OU is going to have a good game. But I know Texas can win it. The issues start to become when a mistake happens, when the emotions start to boil up, when you're on the wrong side of the field, you're on the OU side, and that crowd starts to get louder, and you make a mistake. If you're a defensive lineman and you jump off sides, and it's not even huge, maybe you get them a first down, it is a big one, or maybe it just makes a second down a little bit easier. But whatever it is, you don't compound that mistake by now sitting on the back of your heels. That's going to be a huge factor in this game. Because for Oklahoma, defensively, they're going to have to pick their poison. Now, if JT Sanders is out, it changes the outlook a little bit. Because now you're going to, you have a few less options. You take away a huge option. Gunnar Helm's good, but of course, you're not JT Sanders. JT Sanders is another level. But if you're Oklahoma, you have to pick and choose because, fortunately for Texas, Jonathan Brooks has decided to be his star this year. And with the fact that Sark will still not just say Jonathan Brooks is the dude. C.J. Baxter, we're still going to give him some time. Jonathan Brooks may take this moment, and as we're talking about on the text line, who is the most beloved player? Jonathan Brooks may say, screw Quinn Ewers, screw Xavier Worthy, screw anybody on this DJ. You know what? Love him to death, but this is my year. Sark doesn't want to acknowledge me. Sark doesn't want to tell me I'm going to be the guy. I'm the 1,000-yard rusher, even though I'm over halfway there, even though I'm clearly the guy. I'm going to go have 200 yards against Oklahoma. I'm going to go have 200 yards against a Venables defense, and I'm just going to run the ball down their throat. Brent Venables, it's going to be like a fire hose, drinking from a fire hose. That's what you want Jonathan Brooks to be for this Oklahoma defense. And so I think if you're Texas, you want to get your passing game going, and you're going to. It's Sark. You're going to throw the ball. You're going to be able to get some passes out there. You're going to be able to do kind of what Oklahoma does, which is put the ball out and get it into space and, not throw super deep downfield passes. Dylan Gabriel doesn't throw the ball downfield in that intermediate range, that 10 to 20, 10 to 30 yards, that 10 to 20 really. He doesn't throw very often in that. He's not a great passer in that range. He can put the ball down deep because he can put it up and throw a good long ball. And his receivers are good enough to go in and get underneath it. And he can throw really good in the quick game, kind of, taking away Texas' pressure. He's really good at that as well. Quinn Ewers is going to have to be good at all of those. But even if he's, even if the Oklahoma pressure is coming up and deceiving and showing everything and confusing and you don't really know and you don't feel safe throwing the football, you need to be able to hand the ball to Jonathan Brooks in this game and trust that he's going to be able to get you 4 to 5 yards and get you those big first downs. That, to me, this is his chance to step up and go further in to Texas lore. That's where you want to be for Jonathan Brooks. Now, if you're the Texas defense, you don't have to worry too much about their running game. It has not been great this season, which is a plus for Texas, that the OU running game, they're kind of a one-dimensional team. You got to worry about getting beat over the top for sure. You got to worry about, Dylan Gabriel sneaking out if you do get good pressure on the wide receivers. You have to worry about if Ryan Watts is not there. Do they start trying to pick apart Manny Muhammad? Do they start trying to pick apart some other guys if you lose one of your best players? But I think this is going to come down. But I think Texas will have the preparation. I think Texas will be prepared for most of the inevitabilities. And that's where the big difference is. I think there is flaws in what Alabama or what Oklahoma does. And I don't know if those flaws are as big for Texas. I don't know if you can have game planning giant holes in your game, flaws like Oklahoma does. Like Oklahoma that doesn't really have a running game right now. And so you can say, well, we can try and make them run the ball on us. We can stick up our big guys and Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat on the line and trust our O-line or trust our D-line to make big plays. We can trust them and kind of allocate assets to stop everything else that you want to do. Texas has that ability against Brent Venables doesn't have that against Texas. Brent Venables doesn't have the option of what he wants to pick. And on defense, Texas doesn't, you can say they can go over the top, but if you don't have the run game, Texas now can kind of push those safeties back, and it may let you get a couple more yards, maybe extend a drive or two, but it's not going to get you touchdowns in the red zone. It's not going to get you, big plays over the top, and you're going to have to make those big plays. Those types of things are kind of where I feel that Texas has the edge in this game. That Texas has the edge because there isn't a sure thing that OU can attack. You can go over the top, but OU does that anyway. OU is going to go over the top on Texas. They're going to try and do that. Texas is just going to have the right game plan, be prepared, try and have the right guys in and read the defense. The one thing that OU is going to try and do against Texas, their one big move is going to be trying to confuse Quinn Ewers. To see if they can get away, to disguise some things, to show different looks and morph as a defense to confuse Quinn Ewers. That's their big move. That's the big attack that they have. Because outside of that, defensively, they don't necessarily have a great pass rush that's going to be coming that you have to worry about, that you shouldn't be able to stop normally. They're going to blitz linebackers. You have to worry about that, of your O-line picking up linebackers or your running backs. But if you're Texas, you should be able to have the ball out now quick enough. Quinn Ewers should be able to know that. And we now know if a linebacker comes up the middle, Quinn has the legs to get to the outside. And it takes away another ability of what this Brent Venables defense has to offer, that if Quinn Ewers can run the ball now, it's yet another piece that you have to plan for that Venables defense. Here's Sark talking about that Brent Venables defense that Texas is going to try and attack. They got good high football IQ. They got good players. They got physical players. Texas is going to have to be more physical. Texas is going to have to be smarter. Quinn Ewers is going to have to play a good game where he knows he doesn't allow Brent Venables to confuse him once or twice and take that to heart and not trust his training. That's what's going to take for Texas to win. If Quinn Ewers can trust his training, then this Texas offense can put up enough points against this defense. And I believe our defense can hold this OU offense. Dillon Gabriel is a good quarterback. He'll be the best quarterback we face this year. Definitely the most experienced. But what he likes to do is somewhat limited. So you can plan for what he likes to do. This is another game in Texas. Historically, and not just in the Sark years, but in every year. You worry about, in a rivalry game, you worry about any game for the rest of the season, that this team plays to a different level and they don't play to their peak ability. Their peak ability, they can beat Texas. You worry about the fact they're 5-0. You worry about listening to the hype. You worry about them listening to things about OU not playing anybody. You worry about any of those. You worry about hearing all the hype about how good you've been playing. All those things. You worry about them. And you don't, and suddenly you don't worry about enough things, and you go out there and you don't practice and you don't have the preparation, you don't have the focus, and OU punches you in the mouth, and now it's a different battle. This is a question asked of Sark, and this is the question that Texas is going to have to respond to correctly if they want to win this game, if they want to continue on in the season. Sark was asked, is Texas the best team in the country? Straight up, you're 5 weeks into the season. You played 2 ranked teams. You can't say anybody But you can't say you're not. It's a trick question. If you say you are, you're too cocky. And if you say you're not, then you don't believe in yourself. That's what Texas is having to deal with right now. That's what Texas have to go into against this OU team. They need to feel that they're the best team in the country. They also need to not act like it. Here's what Sark had to say. And do take your judgment. Does Sark have the right attitude right now? Is Sark ready for this? Doesn't matter what other people say. It only matters what we do. The reality is that comes across really easy if you're someone saying something negative. When someone's saying something positive, it's a lot harder to deal with. Can Texas continue to follow their path of believing they're John Wick and believing that they are the guy to handle it, but they're still the Tom Brady underdogs? Can they still have that path that they still need to go against an OU team where they can't say that the refs are against them? They can't say they're a worse team than OU. They can't say they're not being picked or touchdown favorites. Can they still keep that edge that they've needed? Can they keep it against OU? That, to me, is one of the bigger questions in this game, because if we just go down to talent and matchups, Texas should win. If we go down to trends, we'll play a clip from Rob Babers. Texas should win. When everything's stacked in your favor, are you still able to go out there and take the focus? That's what Texas we want to see, because we haven't seen it in a long time. We haven't seen Texas overperform when they're the favorites. That's what we want to see. We want to see a cover. We want to see another 49-0. I know what Texas fans want to see that. But you want to see them come out and play a good, clean game of football. We're going to come back. We'll read more of your text, 512-447-3776, getting you pumped up for the game with your most beloved Texas Longhorns and memories from the Texas OU game. Send those in, 512-447-3776. Read some more of those when we come back right here on the Horn 1019 and 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex on a Wednesday afternoon, playing some hate songs. This is a solid hate song. We can't play the original lyrics that make it a bit more of a hate song. Some reason we can't play those on the air. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. We're asking you of your biggest hero, your most beloved hero in the Texas OU series for the Longhorns. No, we've had a Sooner infiltrate already. We've had a Sooner infiltrate and try and put some names in there that shouldn't be in there. If you're a baseball fan, the Minnesota Twins have just beaten the Toronto Blue Jays. Now they have clinched. They are moving on to play the Houston Astros in the ALDS. We know the Rangers will be playing the Baltimore Orioles. The Twins will be playing the Astros. We get the matchup of Carlos Correa coming back to Houston. It is going to be a big matchup starting this weekend. So if you're an Astros fan, Carlos Correa coming back to play against the Astros. Look, I guarantee you he's ready for this series after, of course, last season being on the announce crew that has to then talk about how Jeremy Pena is doing the best and wins World Series MVP, and he has to tell how great of a guy Jeremy Pena is, the guy who took his spot, who he trained, that they believed in enough that they decided to let Carlos Correa go. He's had the whole season the offseason where his leg injury meant that he wasn't going to get signed. He missed out on 2 giant contracts because of it. He has some motivation coming to play the Astros. And by the way, there is a new documentary out on the Astros, on the whole sign-stealing scandal. If you're an Astros fan or not, and you want to learn, it's about more than just that. It is about the culture of the Astros through that entire period. It's an interesting piece. I will say it's very interesting. I thought some of the parts of it were a little bit too overblown, and some were probably not big enough. Underblown. Is underblown a thing? That's it. So, and it's done in a documentary way that's not my favorite, but I will give it. Frontline from PBS it's called The Astros Edge, I believe is what it's called. You can find it on YouTube. So if you don't even, have a TV provider, it's available on YouTube as well. You can watch it. It's an interesting documentary, an interesting look at the cheating scandal, about everything that went on to build that team. Interesting stuff. If you're an Astros fan or not, you just want to know more about what the Astros did to get to where they've had the dynasty they've had. Going to be playing the Twins. Just something there. Rangers win today. Mute their celebration, but then they go out and celebrate big in the locker room. They tried to put on a show in front of everybody. So, we're not going to celebrate too big. Because they got in trouble because they celebrated and the Astros won the division. Were they going to have 2 parties? Come on, guys. You weren't going to party twice, Rangers. You got to save it for the division win. That's the only problem, is I didn't think you were going to do it. It would be weird to do it twice. Get back to the text line. We're asking you, 512-447-3776. We're asking you, who is your most beloved Longhorn in the Texas OU series, getting you ready for the big game on Saturday. Favorite players, Jordan Shipley and his awesome punt return and great catches. No, we will not say Samaje Perine and his tremendous games against Texas Sooner people on the text line. I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you listening, but we will not say that. Kyler Murray didn't even shake Sam's hands, was a negative. And Cameron Dicker. Yeah, Dicker, I think he is the most recent hero. He's the one, people still love him going off to the NFL. Dicker, the kicker, and that wink before winning the game. It's an iconic moment. 1989, Peter Gardere to Johnny Walker for the go-ahead touchdown. That's my favorite play. My favorite horn in the OU game has to be Randy McEachern. Solid one there as well. The years Colt McCoy and Sam Bradford competed against each other was probably one of the better stretches in the rivalry, all the way up to the footage of Colt, Sam, and Tim Tebow in New York ahead of that Heisman year ceremony. I like all those years. We get another Sooner with Adrian Peterson. No, he is not a hero in this. Not a hero. There, Peter Gardere gets a good one in there. Favorite recent moment, Sam Ehlinger throwing up the horns at the side of the field after his touchdown. Johnny Walker gets a good mention in there. Clash of the Cotton Bowl is another name we're going for. If you have another name for us, go ahead and send those in as well. Giving OU the goose here last year, that will always be one of my favorite more new memories. Bevo Angel says, Texas proved that their elite defense against Kansas. By the way, Longhorns found their number 1 running back in Dylan Brooks. Or Jonathan Brooks, sorry. Yes, I agree with that for sure. And the most hated OU player is Ricky Williams. We get that as well. We know that the most hated is Roy Williams, the Superman leave. But Bevo Angel, who's your favorite? When I say your favorite Texas player, Ricky Williams, 139s with Doug Walker. We'll give him one. From Piper. Cody Johnson, that's a solid one from Locksmith Alex. Let's see what Victor, voice of Nelson Field. Yes, on past 6. Sorry, yes, I was on later than normal because of the Rangers. They have closed out the series. They will not be back on tomorrow, so we will be back on at a normal time for all of that. We're going to play a clip. We'll get through some more of these texts when we get back. We're going to play a clip from Ian Rodby from Hook 'em Up this morning, weekday morning, 6 to 11, right here on the Sports Complex, talking about some recent trends Rod Babers has found in the Texas OU rivalry. Here's Rod Babers, Aaron Hogan from this morning. Yes, we know that Jonathan Brooks is going to be the guy. We know that. And I think that Sark is trying to get him to go out there and be one of the names we're talking about most beloved. Chan, my man on the text line, asking what is Texas' average yards per carry? Rod says that Oklahoma's is low at 4 yards per carry. Texas is at 5 yards per carry. And I know that doesn't sound like a huge difference, but Texas is 27th in the nation at yards per carry at 5, and Oklahoma is 75th at 4. There's a big difference between a yard and that, and then you kind of get into the teams that are just blowing it away, like Kentucky at 6.8 yards per carry. So there it isn't a huge difference just in a yard, you think there, but it is in actual how it's going to go across the country and what a difference a yard makes in that, Chan. But it's a good question. And why do I get the feeling OU is going to sell out and stop the run? I wish they would. Sell out and stop Jonathan Brooks all day. You know, if you're going to try and put Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, and especially if JT Sanders plays in single coverage against Quinn Ewers and not pass rush hard because you're worried about the run, if you're really selling out to stop the run, it's not a pass rush necessarily. You're talking about going over the top. That means Texas is going to have a shot. So I think that would be the best case scenario for Texas is if they just kind of sit there and try and stop Jonathan Brooks. For Sark, he just let Quinn Ewers go over the top. I know teams are going to start trying to make Quinn beat him. That wasn't the plan, but Jonathan Brooks is starting to change it. That's part of the thing. Texas has too many options right now. It becomes harder and harder to stop them. We got to take one more break. When we come back, wrap things up here on the Sports Complex on the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Had a blast with you guys on the show today. We appreciate everybody joining along with us and playing along here on the text line 512-447-3776. Save it in your phone. We always appreciate you guys jumping on the text line with us. We're back tomorrow. My man Jacob Stander going to join me in studio. Get you some picks ready for the weekend because on Friday, a huge show, 4 to 7. We're doing an extra hour to give you more pregame coverage for Texas OU. Aaron Hogan's going to join the show live from Dallas from Terry Black's Barbecue. Rob Baber's going to join the show in studio with me. We're going to have a big old show talking Texas versus OU on Friday. Tomorrow, Jacob Stander in studio. Saturday, myself and Ty Henderson out at the Fieldhouse at Kyle's doing a watch party. Rod and Aaron doing pregame right here on the station. Keeping you in the loop. Everybody be safe, be kind. We'll be back tomorrow right here on the Horn. Until then, it's almost 7 o'clock. And OU still sucks.